so shocking. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Jaya Gurudeva Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 10, chapter 45 and text number 34. Sarahasya Dhanurvedam. Sarahasya Dhanurvedam. Dharmanyaya Pathamstatha. Dharmanyaya Pathamstatha. Tatha Chanvikshikim Vidyam. Tatha Chanvikshikim Vidyam. Rajanitim cha sadvidam. Rajanitim cha sadvidam. Sarahasyam dhanurvedam. Dharmanyaya pathamstatha. Tatha chanvikshikim vidyam. Rajanitim cha sadvidam. Sarahasyam dhanurvedam. Sarahasyam dhanurvedam. Dharmanyaya pathamstatha. Tatha chanvikshikim vidyam. Rajanitim cha sadvidan. Sarahasyam, along with its confidential portion. Dhanu Vedam, the science of military weapons. Dharman, the doctrines of human law. Nyaya, of logic. Pathan, the methods. Tatha, also. Tathacha, and similarly. Anshikshikim, of philosophical debate. Vidyam, the branch of knowledge. Rajanitim, political science. Cha, and Sadvidham, in 6 aspects. Translation and purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. He also taught them the Dhanurveda with its most confidential secrets, the standard books of law, the method of logical reasoning and philosophical debate, and the 6-fold science of politics. He also taught them the Dhanurveda and its most confidential secrets, the standard books of law, the methods of logical reasoning and philosophical debate, and the 6-fold science of politics. Srila Sridhar Swami explains that confidential portion of the Dhanurveda, military science, includes knowledge of the appropriate mantras and presiding deities of warfare. Dharman refers to the Manu Samhita and other standard law books, Dharma Shastras. Nyaya Pathan refers to the doctrine of Karma Mimamsa and other such theories. Anvikshikim is the knowledge of the techniques of logical argument, Tarka. The 6-fold political science is quite pragmatic and includes Sandhi, making peace, Vigraha, war, Yana, marching, Asana, sitting tightly, Dvaita, dividing one's forces, and Samshaya, seeking the protection of a more powerful ruler. So Vishwanath Thakur is purport is based on his commentary. Okay, I'll just read Jiva Goswami. O king, those best of persons, Krishna and Balram, being themselves the original promulgators of all varieties of knowledge, could immediately assimilate each and every subject after hearing it explained just once. Sanatana Goswami says, Nyaya and Anvikshiki are listed separately since Nyaya is logic based on scripture. Anvikshiki is called Vidya or method since material people are attracted to it. The word cha indicates other things as well. The list is in order of important to less important subjects, but all are important in speaking. Or the word cha means api. They learn not only military arts but dharma, logic, etc. Though not necessary, they learn to teach the public. By uttering just once, they learn completely, since they were to be worshipped by all the devatas and they were the creators and maintainers of all knowledge. Om Agyanati Mirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Shaitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. So, seek the blessings of Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas and speak a few words here. Hare Krishna. So, we are reading a section where after Krishna has killed Kamsa, and then the entire section from the Bhagavatam where we read about that whole, the mood between Krishna's parents as Nanda and Yashoda and Krishna's parents as Vasudeva and Devaki. That whole dynamics, that whole mood, we read that. And then after that, it's described that how Vasudeva, he actually decided that now is the time for his Krishna and Balram to actually accept the Upanaya Samskar, or the sacred thread ceremony. They accepted that. And then after that, it was time for their, as such, Gurukul, or education. And that's when Krishna and Balram decided to stay in this place known as Avanti, under the instructions of Sandipani Muni, where Sandipani Muni was actually teaching them. So actually last year I went to this place, Sandipani Muni Ashram in India. It's in Ujjain. And like I had been there a few years before, but they have made this like a new development in that entire center. It's a beautiful place, you can go, and they have the ashram where Krishna was residing. But now they have created this like, there was a lake before, but now they kind of, created borders to a lake. And if you walk all around the lake, along the wall, they created this like 3D illustrations of the 64 arts that Krishna learned in 64 days. It's very nice. It's very nicely done. So there's like a 3D model, and they are showing like different arts. Like one of them dancing, they'll say Krishna and Balram in that pose, and it's very nicely done. And they have a, like a small note about like what was the art and so on. So if you walk all around the lake, so it's quite a big walk, you can see all those 64 arts. So here we have started reading that list, and in the previous verse, it was described that, previous verse it was described how he taught them the entire Vedas, the 6 scholaries, the Upanishads. So that was the first, and then now we are continuing. And then we start off in this verse by the science of Dhanur Veda. right? Dhanurveda is the science of military weapons. But one thing interesting in this verse is it starts off with Sa Rahasyam. Sa Rahasyam means it's with most confidential secrets, you know. So one may consider that with military weapons, what is the confidential secrets, you know? And we see that in like in Mahabharata in so many different instances, like when Arjun actually he went towards the Himalayas to seek weapons before the war, you know. Then he came to one place where he started meditating, and then Indra actually came. Like he wanted to get the weapons of the demigods, the Divya Astras in one way, that's what it's called. And then he was there, and then Indra actually appeared in front of him. And he said, like, if you really want to get the weapons, first you have to please Lord Shiva. And then Arjun actually, he started meditating on Lord Shiva. And then we know the story that how after, like he was meditating for some time, and after that when Lord Shiva was pleased, then what happened was a demon in the form of a boar, it actually came to attack Arjun. You know, so Arjun was meditating, and a demon in the form of a boar came and attacked Arjun. And then Arjun immediately took out his arrow and was ready to shoot him. And at the same time, as he was going to shoot him, he heard a voice from another side of a hunter, you know, a hunter. And he said like, no, don't shoot him. He's my prey. You know, I have the right to shoot this boar, you know. And Arjun, you know, he was like, he's such a powerful warrior, and you know, what is this hunter in front of him? So immediately he took his arrow, he shot that boar. And as he released his arrow, at the same time the hunter's arrow also came and hit the boar at the same time. And Arjun was amazed at that time, like who is as expert as him to actually release the arrow at the same time where it actually both of them come and hit the boar at the same time. And then the hunter said, actually this is my, you know, I killed this person. And Arjun said, and we see that Kshatriya spirit, you know. Like someone may say like, oh yeah, the boar is dead, it's done, right? What's the big deal now? But for Kshatriya spirit, it's like, no, I killed him, my arrow was the first one. And then there was this whole, you know, argument, and then it led to the fight. And then this hunter and Arjun, they started fighting, and it's described like there was like an immense fight that happened in between both of them, and they were actually releasing like, you know, very special weapons. And Arjun, like in spite of all his effort, was almost at the point that he was like losing, you know. And then Lord Shiva released another weapon, and Arjun tried to release. And one point he was just like, almost like, oh, who is this personality? And then he was thinking like, who is so powerful to defeat me? You know, Arjun is such a great warrior, such a great archer, like, you know, one of the best. So he was saying, who's so powerful? And then he immediately considered, this must be my worship, the personality I'm worshipping, Lord Shiva. And then he immediately created like a kind of a form of Lord Shiva, and he started offering flowers to that form of Lord Shiva. And as soon as he offered flowers to that kind of that, maybe he made it out of mud or something. As soon as he offered flowers, those flowers went and fell on the hunter. So he knew, oh, this is my Lord Shiva. But the reason I bring up this story is that that the weapons in those days were all, like one can shoot a weapon only when he actually has the blessings of the demigod. And the demigod is actually saying, okay, this is a weapon, and this is the mantra by which you can actually invoke the weapon. So here when he says Sa Rahasyam, he got, like he learned, Krishna was taught the science of military weapons along with the mantras to actually invoke the weapons. You know, so that kind of technology, like we have no idea of those technology, and we see how the technology of the Srimad Bhagavatam is so much more advanced than what is our current technology. Prabhupada mentions that point about nuclear weapons. And Prabhupada says, like, now if you release a nuclear weapon, it's like city, the entire city, and then areas beyond that are actually affected. But Brahmastra is actually a nuclear weapon, but with the mantra you can direct it to a particular person. You know, so where is that science now? Like in Bhagavatam, we read about in the first canto, 7th chapter, how Ashwatthama, he released the Brahmastra just to kill the Pandavas and the sons of, just to kill the Pandavas, right? And then Arjun saw the Brahmastra coming, and then he released his Brahmastra, and then there was a whole incident after how Arjun went and he captured Ashwatthama. But you know, the point is like the weapons are so powerful that they can be directed through mantras to a particular person. Even in the story of Karna, so Karna also, like when finally he was fighting his battle with Arjun, then he had this very powerful weapon, which was also a Divyastra. So after some time of the fight, then he said, okay, now I'm going to invoke this very powerful weapon. And then he forgot the mantra. And then because he forgot the mantra, he couldn't even invoke that weapon. You know. And that's the story behind it, that how he was cursed by Parshuram, his own teacher. Because like after Parshuram had taught Karna, and there was this whole incident where Parshuram was actually resting on the lap of Karna, you know. And then at the same time a scorpio came and started biting Karna, but Karna could tolerate it. And Parshuram immediately realized that you can tolerate this bite, why didn't you wake me up? If you can tolerate this, that means you are a Kshatriya, and you have lied to me about your Varna. Hence I curse you, that at the time when you need this weapon the most, that's when you will forget the mantra. You know. And when finally Karna was actually going to release this weapon to Arjun, at that time he actually forgot the mantra to invoke. So we see that Rahasyam, that is all the mantras that actually go with these military weapons. So in the purport it says, includes knowledge of appropriate mantras and the presiding deities. Like Arjun was particularly asked to get the Pashupatra weapon, which is a weapon of Lord Shiva. Right? So you have to get that. Right? So that was the first thing here. And then after it, it talks of Dharman. Dharman means doctrines of human law, particularly Manu Samhita and other law books. So it's interesting if we see the sequence of topics that are mentioned, and also our Acharya mentioned that it goes from more important to kind of less important, you know. So if you see in the previous verse, what were the topics that were taught? It was all about Vedas, spiritual science, you know. And now it is coming to like science of weapons. So this is related to more. So we can see first the highest spiritual knowledge is that of spiritual knowledge. Right? Adhyatmic Gyan, Krishna says, right? Spiritual knowledge. But after that, what is it? There's knowledge related to his own Varna. As a Kshatriya, what is the knowledge required for him to act as a Kshatriya? Right? So if you see, first is spiritual knowledge, and then Varnashram, knowledge regarding your Varna. So even in Bhagavatam, in the 7th canto, towards the last few chapters, we see how in the conversation between Narad Muni and Yudhishthir, he talks of the knowledge of the different varnas and the different ashramas. You know. And also if you consider the entire Bhagavad Gita, out of the 700 shlokas, over almost around 100 shlokas is just pertaining to the 3 modes of material nature and the knowledge about the varnas. You know, importance of varnas. So even in Bhagavad Gita, if you see there are 2 shlokas that repeat. One is directly to do with spiritual knowledge. Man mana bhava mad bhakto mad yaji mam namaskuru. And the other one is actually to do about Avarna, where Krishna is making the point to Arjun. He says that, you know, it is better to act according to one's own Varna, even though faultily, than to do the duties of another Varna. Right? So, you know, so our Vedic culture, there's an emphasis of understanding what is a Varna, what is a ashrama, and getting trained according to that Varna or ashrama. You know, in the 1st canto, 9th chapter, that Bhishma's prayers, you know. That Prabhupada actually in the purport, he makes this point. He says the importance of understanding the Varna and ashrama and getting trained and working along those lines helps one as accelerate one's spiritual qualities. You know, helps one accelerate one's spiritual qualities. So if one is actually working according to his Varna and ashrama, then that is actually very conducive for his spiritual development, and in that way he can actually focus, you know, without any distractions on his spiritual journey. So yeah, so after the, you know, so that, then it was Varnashrama. Then after that, there is the Manu Samhita. So Prabhupada in one of the purports, he says, Manu gave the law known as Manu Samhita, which is full of directions based on Varna and Ashrama concerning how to live as a human being. These are very scientific ways of life, but under the rule of demons, human society breaks all these symptoms of law and order and gradually becomes lower and lower. Thus there is no peace in the world. The conclusion is that if we want real peace and order in human society, we must follow the principles laid down by Manu Samhita and confirmed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada is actually emphasizing that importance of the book, the Manu Samhita. Like Prabhupada says, Manu, the Manu, it refers to Manushya and is similar to the word man. Right? So man, it's humankind. So he says like these principles which are given in Manu Samhita are important just to understand how to live in this world. Like Prabhupada often mentions from the Manu Samhita, like principles about like either divorce, or he mentions about principles about inheritance of property, and all that is actually given in Manu Samhita. So the next one is the standard books of law, the Manu Samhita. And then after that he goes into the methods of logical reasoning. Right? So it says Nyaya, logic. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita we hear as Nimai Pandit, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nimai Pandit. He was an expert logician. And we read that how when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to debate, like even when Gadadhar Pandit, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go to him and like invoke him that let's debate. Because Nimai Pandit, that's what was his thing as a logician. And he used to make an argument and used to ask Gadadhar Pandit, so you defeat this argument. And Gadadhar Pandit used to defeat it. And then using the points that Gadadhar Pandit made, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used it and then defeated that argument. And then like in that way it used to go back and forth. And that's why Gadadhar Pandit was like, he saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and once he saw Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at a distance and then he just turned and walked away. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Nimai Pandit, was thinking that, why did, I think he was with one of his associates, I forget who was the other person. He looked at him and said, why did Gadadhar Pandit actually see me and turn away and walk in the other direction? And the associate said, maybe he remembered something else. And then Nimai Pandit said, no. Gadadhar Pandit, he only wants to talk about Krishna. And hence he does not want to get involved with this logic and argument. That's not what Gadadhar Pandit wants to do. And that's why he saw me and he didn't want to discuss any more logic, and then he turned and he walked in the other direction. And then at that time Nimai Pandit actually proclaims, he said like, one day I'll become such a great devotee that all these people will come and they will not want to leave my association. Like who would make such a claim? He said, I'll become a devotee greater than Lord Shiva or something like that. So that shows like, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's position. But here it talks of Nyaya, the logic of, the science of logic, how to do debates, philosophical debate, what is the art of that. And then after that it talks of Raja Nitim, Sadvidham. Sadvidham referring to the six aspects of political science. So it says making peace, then engaging in war, attacking, then holding your ground, dividing the forces, and seeking protection of more powerful rulers. So interesting, like the depth of the knowledge of the Vedas. Whatever you want, whatever knowledge, like Vedas is also known as the desire tree. Whatever knowledge we want from the Vedas, that is actually there in the Vedas. So if you want knowledge of politics, how to divide your forces, how to engage in war, how to seek protection of a more powerful ruler, everything is actually there in our Vedas. Right? So these are different topics. And again going back to the subject matter of the different kinds of knowledge I was thinking. So one is the highest is the spiritual knowledge. Then I talked about the Varnashram, right? Understanding of Varna and Ashrama, and then acting, getting trained in that Varna or Ashrama, and then acting according to that. Then the next one is Manu Samhita, which is basically the law of like dealing with other personalities, like as I mentioned, like inheritance, all those. So Manu Samhita, that's the next science. And then after that, okay, so those you can see the different aspects of science. And then we'll see in the next verse, which is it continues, 35 and 36, it goes through the list of the 64 arts. Right? So in the purport it talks of singing, dancing, drama, painting, all those things. So it goes through a whole list, and that is that list that you can see in Ujjain, where they have made the beautiful illustration for each list. So I was thinking about this point that comparing to our current knowledge system, what is actually given in the schools and education. Like here, if you see, like let's say the science of how to use weapons, military science. Okay. So maybe there is science of like, outside that, how to actually engage in warfare, how to use guns, maybe that science is there. But the point that is missing is when to actually use it and why to actually use it. So basically in science we learn like how things are happening. And that's what is, and it just comes and limits the science to that. If we can just understand how things are happening, that means we are successful. But the real question of why and when, and when it should be used, that is totally lost. And that's why the whole aspect of like, how this whole shooting is such a big issue all over US. You have this mass shooting. Well, guns are there, people know how to use it, but people don't have any constraint over like when to use it. No control of like how to use it. Like even if you consider any technology, like social media, like, one may say like, oh yeah, it is so popular, so wonderful, without social media, how would we live? All these things. But there's always the other side of it. One can just like spend hours and hours on social media and not realize what one is doing. Or one can, have some, use social media to, you go to Facebook and people just like, especially among devotee circles, so often you see like so much criticism and back and forth. So any kind of technology, yes, it can be useful, but there's also the science of how to not misuse that science. And that kind of knowledge is actually not given. Like even the people who have created social media, maybe they just want to say, oh, this is so good, everyone should sign up, be a member, and you can connect with your friends. But no one talks about like what is the negative side of it. How one could just spend hours and just waste his life just on social media. Or what negative things one could do through social media. That kind of education, that kind of training is actually not given in our current society. And that's why there's so many problems all over. But here when you see the knowledge, it is not only like spiritual knowledge, but knowledge of like weapons, but also the law of Manu Samhita. How to use it, when to use it. And then also previously we read about this point that how Sandipani Muni was so so appreciative of Krishna and Balaram. Why? Because they were self-controlled. They were self-controlled. So having technology is good, but if that is without the self-control, it could be very much destructive. Having technology is good, but if that technology is without the education of how to be self-controlled, then that could be destructive. So I was just thinking of that point. Like even as devotees, like we use technology, right? Utility is our principle. But even I feel like many times, even in a devotee circle, we sometimes need the education of like, what is, okay, we can use this in Krishna's service, but be careful. You could just cross the border, the boundary line, there's a thin boundary line. You could cross it and you could actually go into Maya. You could get distracted from your spiritual activities. So there's like yes, technology is good, we use it for spreading Krishna consciousness, but you have to be careful of the thin border line, where you're like from Krishna service, you are actually going to the other side and engaging in Maya service. So even for devotees, I think it's a point to think about. But Maharaj was mentioning this point yesterday, he quoted, it was Tesham, Satya Yuktam, Bhajatam, Priti Purvakam. Like Krishna gives us the intelligence. So if you are using technology and if you are sincere in our efforts that yes, we just want to use it for Krishna's service. And Krishna gives us the intelligence that, okay, this is how you use it, and this is where you step back and say, okay, this is not what I want to do with this aspect of technology. So, that intelligence Krishna gives, but as long as we are sincere and we are very careful of the right use of technology. So let's see if there are any comments, and then maybe I'll add one more point I wanted to make. Any comments or any realizations? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually a big concern. Like I've been reading that people like through ChatGPT they can have like, you know, the ChatGPT create a voice of a person saying so and so, you know, which, yeah, yeah, right, right, yeah. It's very extremely dangerous. Yeah, yeah. Yes, Mara, that's a, especially ChatGPT, like that's an example where I think like the technology itself is overgrown what is actually what is created for it itself is like, you know. Mm, mm, right, right, mm-hmm, right, very dangerous. Yeah, yeah. Phil Maharaj also the point that like okay technology is growing, like, you know, people say, oh, ChatGPT, it can write programs for me, like I don't have to work so hard. But like, okay, you're trying to save time, but to do what? Like if you don't have a purpose in life, and because as you mentioned, most of them have the Shudra tendencies. So if you have free time, then naturally you start to do things which are actually destructive to yourself and the society. So yes, we want to free time and say, oh yeah, technology will do this for me. I don't have to spend like 10 hours at work. I can just do it in 1 hour and ChatGPT will do the rest. But what are you going to do in your free time? Just create more nonsense, like create more destructive things, you know. So without that purpose, without that why question, it's just like, and technology creates unemployment. Mm. Right. Yeah. Yes. Hmm. Right. And then the problems come, as Maharaj was mentioning, that people don't have clear intentions of what to use it for. Like even if you consider technology neutral, like what are we going to use it for? Ashwatthama? Brahmastra, yes. Dhanurveda, yeah. Yeah. Perfect example. Yes. Yes, go ahead. Yes, garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, this is going to become worse and worse. Yeah. Yes, Mati. No, I was just. No, you can go ahead, Mati. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's getting worse and worse. And then coming to the point, like how Prabhupada said that these books that Prabhupada has given, is going to save the world in the darkest area of darkest. It's like it's going worse and worse. And like, what is the hope in this world? It's only Prabhupada's books, and they are like, when they go out, people hear the holy name, they receive Prabhupada's books, then it is like, okay, now I understand what is the purpose of my life, why am I here? Otherwise, it's just like going down and down. What is the hope? The only hope is Srila Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada said for the next 10,000 years, and Bhakti Anugrah Janardhan Maharaj was quoting Jananivas Prabhu, making the point that 10,000, as soon as TOPP inaugurates, the start of the 10,000 years. So it is Srila Prabhupada's books that's going to save the whole world. So it's, we have to just like go deeper into books, share the knowledge, share the books as much as we can. That's our only hope in this, rapidly progressing Kali Yuga. Yes, no? Okay. So anyway, like another point which I was going to make was, if you see this entire theme of like how Sandipani Muni is actually revealing the knowledge, there's one word that's particularly used, which he actually says, is with affection. Sandipani Muni is speaking out of affection. And that goes point to the theme that Maharaj was making yesterday, that when the disciple serves the Guru, Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir Yatha Deve Tatha Guru, when he actually serves the Guru, then the Guru gets pleased with him. And then he reveals knowledge out of affection, that yes, my disciple is so sincere, he's serving me so nicely, so out of affection he reveals. And this entire Krishna learning these 64 acts, like we read previously also, is just an instruction for all of us how we should serve our spiritual master, how we accept the spiritual master as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and try to please him. And if you search in Veda base, the secret of success, the maximum times Prabhupada has used the point secret of success is in the point of rendering service in such a way to please the spiritual master. And he's quoted this verse, Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir, again and again, as the secret of success. So our whole secret of success is to please our Guru Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Nam Kanvandam Maravindadalaya Taksham Bhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandar Agom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Jami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Jami Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Jami Angani Yasa Sakale Kriya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Amaham Jami 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 Govindam Adi Purusham
Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadine Nirvisesha Samyavadi Paschachadisattarine Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Radha Golokananda Radha. Jaya Radha Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radhe. Golokananda Radha Golokananda Radha. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.
Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Antakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Govardhana Sami Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai. Machuram ki jai. Jagannath Swami Yamuna Maya Kajaya, Shimali Lasadeva Kajaya, Sampita Bhakta Vrinda Kajaya, Gaur Premananda Haribol. All glories is some devotees, all glories is some devotees, all glories is some devotees. All glories Shri Guru
Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Vavamahadavadhivanam Anandam Putivarana Pratipadam Purnamritasvadana Sarvatmastapadam Param Vidayate Shri Krishna Sankirtana Nam Nam Kali Bhavdani Sarvashakti Tatvapidani Amita Smarane Naka Etadrishi Tava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Durdaiva Midrishami Hajjani Nanuraga Trinadapi Sunitena Tarorapi Suhishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavidam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Janmani Janmani Ishvare Bhavatad Bhaktir Ahoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Padidam Mam Vishame Bhavam Buddha Kripayatava Pada Pankaja Stita Duli Satrashim Vachintaya Nayanam Galashu Daraya Varanam Gadgada Rudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vabhukada Tavanamagrahane Bhavishyati Hayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Aslishava Padamritam Manastumam Adarshanam Marmata Karotuva Yatatata Bhavindatolam Pato Mat Prananatastusa Eva Napara. Victory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, congregational chanting of your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Out of kindness, you gave us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respects to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I'm your eternal servitor, yet somehow or other I've fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me brokenhearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Haribo.